Here's a late review of Tar, the new movie by writer-director Todd Field. I absolutely love this movie. It just came out late 2022. I finally got access to this movie. I want to do a review for this channel for my regular viewers and for other people who come along because I think this movie is absolutely great. So yeah, up front I'm giving it 4.5 to 5 stars. I think this movie is rewatchable. It is certainly well made, and it is a work of art. It is about, of course, a fictional conductor, Lydia Tar, whom we see throughout the entire movie in her everyday life, going from orchestral halls where she's recording, classical music recordings of Mahler's symphonies, all the way to brushing her teeth a couple of times and chopping lemons, taking her daughter to school, being at home, traveling around, dealing with her assistants, composing music in a compartment. This is a movie that's really one character focus, and it's about this complex psyche, complex person who is Lydia Tar, played pretty much amazingly by Cate Blanchett. Very likely she's going to be considered for an Oscar, perhaps will even win one. Now there's a lot of things to attend to this movie, so I'm going to hit some particular highlights for you. Whether if you've seen it or you haven't, you'll benefit from this video. First of all, the movie's story. One element of this movie is just the daily life of Lydia Tar, one of the most important conductors in the world, we're told. According to the New Yorker, she's been classically recorded. She's got all these accolades that we see and hear about early in the movie. So we know she's in the world of Western music, Western art elites. And she hobnobs between Berlin and New York in this movie. Everything about her, the way she talks, the way she dresses, where she lives, she's basically got a mansion or a very nice modernist house, but she also keeps an apartment where she composes music. She's got a great sports car. She deals with orchestral halls and, the greatest classical musicians. Everything about her screams elite, very seriously upper class beyond anybody or most people watching this video, definitely including me. And for those of us who have attended opera, classical music performance in a big city, acclaimed orchestra, a theater performance, you felt what it's like, I think, to feel elite. Well, here you get the world of the elites, and she's a married lesbian with an adopted daughter, and she's trying to record Mahler's Fifth Symphony during the movie. She's recorded the other numbers 1 through 9 except for number 5, so she'll complete the cycle of Mahler symphonies, as it were. Now that part of the movie gives a lot of realism. It makes this movie feels very realistic, and I would like to know from people who are in classical music, the worlds of classical music, whether this movie is even close to realistic, whether it's detailing the life of a classical music conductor or not. I don't know enough about that to know whether that's true or not, but my sense is this is super realistic. It feels very realistic to me. But then there is a plot intrigue, a plot problem, which director Todd Field, he leaves it up to us to kind of discover on our own. One of the wonders of this movie is that the viewer gets to discover along the way, including up to the very end, details of Lydia Tar's life, filling in her backstory, explaining why she is the way she is, and then you get to interpret that. So I think your interpretation of what happened will be different from mine, but I think they're probably valid, both of them. And then there are intrigues. There's a character who never appears in the movie. This is not a spoiler. It's a wonderful movie in that there's a main character who is never there, and yet haunting Lydia Tar's life, and we see kind of why, or you'll get to discover why. You have to pay close attention, but it's a younger person, and that's really key for Lydia Tar, who is 50, maybe 55, middle-aged at least. She's had a lot of accolades, but she remembers the pre-internet world, the pre-smartphone world. She's dealing a lot in this movie, at least with 3 or 4 people who are much younger than her and of a different generation. And, these are not just millennials, these are Gen Z types who are into YouTube and getting to know classical music through YouTube, where she got to know classical music through VHS tapes, vinyl, and so on. Anyway, because of this unseen character, there's some paranoia on Lydia Tar's part. She thinks she's being watched or stalked. Maybe she's dreaming that up. Maybe she's not. It's sort of hard to tell for a while. I think at the end of the movie, you have to come to your own conclusions about that. Anyway, this character of Lydia Tar is absolutely fascinating. As a conductor, she explains, she controls time, she controls tempo. She's sort of the master of taking an audience, having them arrive at destination. She's used to being in control, and in this movie you see her in control of a lot of aspects of her life. And then the way she treats her assistants is very interesting. She's got a younger female assistant who has different feelings toward her, but I think in a lot of ways Lydia Tar is very cold to this assistant, which is ironic in a way because Lydia Tar shows favoritism to a lot of younger people, younger females, maybe because she has the hots for them, sexual attraction. In the movie, we do see her psychosexual dreams, her weird dreams, and a lot of hints of thinking about death in this movie. But she does have the eye for younger women, much to the concern of her married lesbian lover. Now, there are a lot of things I love about this movie. I'm so glad it dealt with the modern world. You know, the contemporary world of smartphones, tech, surveillance, video editing, even like questions of what woke means. There's a student in this who is pangender, as he says, and Lydia Tar has a lecture, or lectures him about liking Bach or not. It's a really, really interesting scene, and it's one that comes back later in the movie. This movie won't leave scenes behind. It will return to that scene and make a big deal out of it later. You know, Tar lives in a sealed-off world of elites, but there are a few moments in the movie where she wanders into, or she's a runner, she runs into the worlds of middle class, of poor people. Here in this movie, it takes place mostly in Berlin. Some really interesting scenes when she walks into a dingy apartment building and confronts that world, which it takes an hour and a half into the movie, and you've seen the world of elite and rich people, and it's so interesting to have that contrast come up later in the movie. But Tar herself, you know, and part of her is attracted, as I said, to younger women and to younger people in general, but also she's repulsed by them. She doesn't understand the world of internet and email as well as she does. She does, sort of, but not as well as she ought to. And there's some interesting stuff in this movie with her being unable to relate to the modern world in particular. In a way, she's in the world of the dead. Her house looks kind of like a prison or mausoleum, even though it's beautiful. And then she's dealing with dead artists, classical music that is long since been written, recorded, and it's not fresh anymore. And then you need to pick up on this word. She's got a key insult she uses, which is robot. Now, if she were on the internet, she might say NPC, but robot means people who are anti-human, anti-feeling, maybe anti-music to her. But I think that also means younger to her. It's very interesting because, of course, as a classical music conductor, she kind of looks like she's going through the motions up there, the robot. I know it's a very expressive position, the conductor. But to be a robot to her is a very bad thing. People who, like the pangender student, is a robot who doesn't like Bach. Anyway, this movie confronts internet controversies, people in power who have seemingly abused that power. In the case of this movie, it's not a white man, it's a married lesbian. Also, this movie deals with her being seen and used on social media and media manipulation of her, even though most of the movie is taking place in the world of orchestra halls and classical music. And then all of the interruptions in her life, that's the modern world. You know, every time she sits down to compose, there's a knock on the door, a phone call, interruption after interruption. But it is interesting as a conductor, who I assume people who are conductors have to be, you know, dominant and in control because there's a lot of people to herd in an orchestra. But she is constantly interrupting other people herself in conversations. So not only is she interrupted, she's the interrupter. And just as you can see, there's a very rich character study of this person who may not be anything like you, but I feel very compelled by this movie, especially as a middle-ager, you know, trying to relate to other younger people in the different ways that they approach life, given that they grew up in a internet smartphone age. Now, viewers need to be warned, this movie is going to go to very weird places. I will not spoil it. The last 20 to 30 minutes, the writer, Todd Field, keeps pushing things and pushing and pushing into what you might see as weird and bizarre directions. On reflection, I thought the ending was absolutely astounding. I love the last few shots. I love where Tar goes. I love the problems and how she deals with them. On and on and on. I think this movie is a statement about 2022, 2023. In fact, it even mentions the COVID pandemic and how it's affected the world of the movie, just kind of like our own world in the last couple of years. So I feel like this movie is really making some strong, interesting, artistic, complex statements about right now, which I really appreciate in the middle of 1980s retro stuff, in which we're seeing a lot of, you know, representations of the past or what it was like to live in 1980. This movie is great because it seems to be about today. So all in all, I love this movie. I think it's one of the best movies of 2022. It may make my my best of the decade list. We'll see. We've got a few years to go, but I probably will put it in the top 50 to 100 on that list, and maybe higher than that when all is said and done. So what do you think of Tar? Let us know in the comments. Please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thank you. Have a great day.